recent years, the United States has traveled thousands of miles and sent military aircraft and warships to the Taiwan Strait one after another to provoke troubles, but vowed that this is to prevent China from unilaterally changing the status quo of the Taiwan Strait and maintaining peace in the Taiwan Strait. However, what is the real status quo in the Taiwan Strait, Americans will not say, and dare not say. Today we will make it clear. The United States says in words that it adheres to the One China policy, but in action it turns a blind eye to the Taiwan independence separatist activities, condones and supports them openly and secretly, and even refers to opposing Taiwan independence separatism as changing the status quo in the Taiwan Strait. This is a departure from the rather than practicing the One China policy, Kamiklai Rui. 1. What is the real status quo in the Taiwan Strait? From a legal perspective, the real status quo of the Taiwan Strait can be summed up in three terms. First, China has indisputable sovereignty over the Taiwan region. China's sovereignty and territory have never been and will never be divided. The Taiwan issue is purely China's internal affair. Taiwan has belonged to China since ancient times, as evidenced by a large number of historical documents. The Cairo Declaration and Potsdam Proclamation clearly demanded that the territories Japan stole from China, such as Manchuria, Northeast China, Taiwan, and the Penghu Islands, etc., be returned to China. This is not only a legal confirmation of the fact that Taiwan belongs to China, and is an important part of the post-World War II international order. After the meeting between China, the United States and Britain in Cairo, the capital of Egypt, they issued a press communique on the war against Japan on December 1, 1943, commonly known as the Cairo Declaration. Second, both sides of the Taiwan Strait belong to One China. The government of the People's Republic of China is the only legal government representing the whole of China, including Taiwan, and the Taiwan authorities have no representation. In 1945, China won the great victory of the anti-Japanese war and the World Anti-Fascist War, and China regained Taiwan legally and in fact. On October 1, 1949, the Central People's Government of the People's Republic of China was proclaimed to replace the old government of the Republic of China and become the sole legal government representing the whole of China. This is a government succession under the condition that China, the subject of international law, has not changed, and China's sovereignty and inherent territory have not changed. Some military and political personnel of the Kuomintang regime retreated to Taiwan province within the territory of China and separated Taiwan with the support of the United States. Therefore, the Taiwan issue is an issue left over from China's civil war and is purely China's internal affairs. On October 1, 1949, Chairman Mao Zedong read the Central People's Government Announcement No. 1 to the world, declaring that the Central People's Government of the People's Republic of China is the sovereign government of China. Third, due to the legacy of the Civil War and the interference of external forces, the two sides of the Taiwan Strait have fallen into a state of long-term hostility, and the Taiwan authorities are only an illegal local government against the central government. The government of the People's Republic of China is the sole legal government representing the whole of China. Internally, it exercises sovereignty over the entire Chinese territory, including Taiwan, and externally it exercises the right of independence and representation. The Taiwan authorities are only an illegal local government that controls a small part of Chinese territory, and exists as a political force against the central government, similar to anti-government armed groups in international law. The 2005 anti-secession law also clearly stipulates that the two sides of the Taiwan Strait can negotiate to officially end the state of hostility across the strait, which means that cross-strait relations are still legally hostile, and this state has not yet ended. On August 23, 1958, the Chinese People's Liberation Army shelled Kinmen. Since then, successive shelling on both sides of the strait continued until the end of 1978. 2. Why slander China for changing the status quo? From the above analysis, it can be seen that the essence of the status quo in the Taiwan Strait is whether national sovereignty and territorial integrity should be maintained, and whether the principle of non-interference in internal affairs in international law should be observed. The United States falsely claims that China has unilaterally changed the status quo across the Taiwan Strait, implying a premise that the Taiwan authorities' separatism is legitimate and legal, and that the relationship between the Taiwan authorities and the central government is equal. The essence of this kind of wordplay is to obstruct China's reunification and create a split state of one China, one Taiwan, or two Chinas. This is a gross interference in China's internal affairs and a serious violation of China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. In February 2023, U.S. Secretary of State Blinken publicly declared in an interview that the Taiwan issue is not China's internal affairs. As the central government, the government of the People's Republic of China enjoys territorial sovereignty over all Chinese territory, including Taiwan. The U.S. hype that China changes the status quo by force is a complete distortion of international law and essentially denies China's exercise of sovereignty over Taiwan. According to international law, safeguarding national sovereignty and territorial integrity by all necessary means is an inherent part of national sovereignty and is not restricted by the UN Charter's principle of prohibiting the use of force in international relations. Article 3 of Additional Protocol 2 to the Geneva Conventions on Non-International Armed Conflicts also confirms that the application of the rules of international humanitarian law does not affect the inherent right of states to maintain sovereign territorial integrity and oppose external interference. In August 2022, the Eastern Theater of the Chinese People's Liberation Army implemented long-range firepower live ammunition shooting training in the Taiwan Strait. As an illegal local government, the Taiwan authorities do not enjoy sovereignty over the Taiwan region. The United States and the Taiwan Independence Forces advocate that Taiwan can achieve independence through a so-called referendum based on the right of national self-determination. Such claims are groundless. The right of national self-determination in international law applies only to situations of decolonization and foreign occupation, and the Taiwan region does not involve these situations, and there is no prerequisite for the application of the right of national self-determination. At the same time, whether and how a part of a country's territory can become independent through a referendum should be regulated by the country's domestic law, usually decided by all citizens of the country. China's constitution and other laws have never authorized any part of the territory to referendum on independence. The future and destiny of the Taiwan region should be decided by all Chinese people, including Taiwan compatriots. For other countries, the United Nations Charter stipulates the basic principles of international law such as sovereign equality and non-interference in internal affairs. The 1970 Declaration on the Principles of International Law and Customary International Law also clearly stipulate that any country supports other countries' internal opposition, intervenes in other countries' civil wars, etc. Interfering in the internal strife of another country is interference in the internal affairs of other countries. On June 3, 2023, the USS Zhonyun destroyer and the Canadian Montreal frigate sailed across the Taiwan Strait. The Eastern Theater Command of the Chinese People's Liberation Army organized naval and air forces to monitor the entire process, and dealt with it in accordance with laws and regulations. Therefore, the United States' involvement in China's handling of the Taiwan issue is obviously an illegal interference prohibited by international law. At the same time, more than 180 countries, including the United States, have established diplomatic relations with China. Through documents such as the Communiqué on the Establishment of Diplomatic Relations and Leaders' Solemn Promises, they recognize the government of the People's Republic of China as the only legal government representing the whole of China. China's obligations. According to UNGA Resolution 2758, the government of the People's Republic of China is the sole legal government representing the whole of China, including Taiwan, in the United Nations. Taiwan belongs to China, which is an unshakable general consensus of the international community. On March 26, 2023, China and Honduras officially established diplomatic relations. In June, the Chinese embassy in Honduras and the Honduras embassy in China opened successively. The fact of the rapid development of China-Hong Kong relations fully proves that adhering to the One China principle is an international righteousness, the trend of the times, and the aspiration of the people. Only the truth can defeat lies and fallacies. When the weapon of criticism becomes the weapon of criticism, the real tiger becomes a paper tiger. Every Chinese has the responsibility to tell the world the true status quo of the Taiwan Strait, and jointly expose the sinister conspiracy of the United States and Taiwan to engage in peaceful secession. Flex biceps. WeChat scan. To follow the public number. Long ago, the U.S. Secretary of State Blinken advocated that the Taiwan issue is not China's internal affairs, sending out a dangerous signal of denying the One China principle at the official level. The United States dragged Taiwan into the abyss of war under the banner of using Taiwan to control China. Kamiklai Rui. As the saying goes, one dog barks at the shadow, 100 dogs bark at the sound. Bewitched and misled by the United States, some politicians in Western countries followed suit one after another and made nonsense on the Taiwan issue. The G7 Hiroshima summit in 2023 will take over the clamor that maintaining peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait is an indispensable and important part of international security and prosperity, and hypocritically calls for a peaceful resolution of cross-strait issues. An unhealthy trend of internationalization of the Taiwan issue is gaining momentum in the United States and the West. The United States is not just fanning the flames in public opinion, it has also spared no effort to fool its allies into collectively intervening in Taiwan Strait affairs, and substantially promote the internationalization of the Taiwan issue. For some time now, some European countries have been making small moves with the Taiwan authorities in terms of military links and official exchanges. German Minister of Education and Research Wasinger became the first federal minister to flee Taiwan in 26 years. It has been revealed that the Czech Republic will provide Taiwan with missile launch vehicles, self-propelled artillery, and carry out unmanned aerial vehicle technology cooperation with Taiwan. On August 17, 2022, Air Force soldiers at Hualien Air Force Base in Taiwan loaded the US-made Harpoon AGM-84 anti-ship missile during a combat readiness mission. Around us, Japan clamored that whatever happens to Taiwan means what happens to Japan, and declared that it would build the closest missile base to Taiwan on Ishigaki Island, Okinawa Prefecture, which is only 270 kilometers away from Taiwan Island. South Korean military planes have repeatedly landed at Taiwan military airports to transit and refuel. The Philippines has opened 4 new military bases to the U.S. military, 3 of which are adjacent to Taiwan Island. The United States has tightened its bilateral military alliances with Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines, accelerated the establishment of small multilateral security mechanisms such as AUKUS, promoted the Asia-Pacificization of NATO, and planned to set up a NATO office in Tokyo, paving the way for future collective intervention in the layout of Taiwan Strait conflicts. The United States also directly jumped to the front to help the Taiwan authorities strengthen the country and expand diplomatic relations to maintain Taiwan's so-called international living space. The Republican congressman of the United States proposed the Delete China Friendship Funding Act, which prohibits providing aid to 21 countries that have no ties with Taiwan, including 8 countries that have severed diplomatic relations with Taiwan. The meaning of killing chickens to warn monkeys is obvious. Before the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and Honduras, the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State rushed to Hong Kong to help Taiwan strengthen the country. After the failure, the spokesperson of the U.S. State Department said sourly that China has made many promises that have not been fulfilled. Before resigning from office, President Panullo of the Federated States of Micronesia suddenly publicly encouraged the secret Taiwan to establish diplomatic relations. It is hard to say that there is no shadow of the United States behind it. The United States has invited Taiwan to participate in the so-called Leaders' Democracy Summit for 2 consecutive years, trying its best to squeeze Taiwan into the international democratic camp. The United States also collaborated with its allies to stage a farce of 8 countries supporting Taiwan and returning to the World Health Assembly. All these kinds are too numerous to enumerate. With the support of the American platform, the DPP authorities are more confident in promoting the internationalization of the Taiwan issue. In her speech marking the 7th anniversary of her inauguration, Tsai Ing-wen advocated that maintaining the status quo across the Taiwan Strait should be the greatest common denominator for all parties. Wu Zheoxi, Wang Maihua, and others falsely stated that to protect Taiwan is to fight against authority, defend freedom and democracy, and to prevent the crisis in the Taiwan Strait from affecting the stability of the global supply chain. The Taiwan authorities also did not hesitate to violate economic laws by arranging for TSMC to set up factories in the United States, Japan, and Europe in an attempt to tie itself and the countries concerned to the same rope. In April 2023, Taiwanese current affairs commentator Lai Yuqian said in an interview that Taiwan is overly dependent on the United States and has to give both hands to TSMC. In addition, the Taiwan authorities are also keen to snap meetings on multilateral occasions such as the World Health Assembly, the Interpol Assembly, and the International Civil Aviation Assembly, and promote Taiwan can help, throwing shame on the whole world. The U.S. Taiwanese gangs have ganged up to stir up the so-called internationalization of the Taiwan issue. It seems that the battle is not small, but it is actually strong outside the middle. The historical wheels of today's world are rolling forward, and the city on the hill is falling at an accelerated rate. The United States, which is deeply trapped in multiple difficulties such as political polarization, economic recession, and social division, feels that it is difficult to promote Taiwan to control China on its own, and has to recruit helpers to play the Taiwan card together. Share the cost and pressure of winning China. As far as the Taiwan independent separatist forces are concerned, facing the continuous widening gap in power between the two sides of the Taiwan Strait and the strengthening trend of the reunification of the motherland, they know that time is running out, and they try to kidnap the international community to survive by foreign countries. In addition, the leadership election in Taiwan will be held next year. The DPP is working hard to enhance Taiwan's international visibility and create so-called diplomatic achievements in order to continue its green governance and serve its own political interests. In June 2022, Tsai Ing-wen, the leader of the Taiwan region, posed for a photo with a rocket launcher on her shoulder while inspecting Taiwan's Marine Brigade, and said that the international situation is changing rapidly, there can be no slack. As we all know, Taiwan's return to China is an integral part of the post-World War II international order. The Cairo Declaration and Potsdam Proclamation clearly demanded that the territories Japan stole from China, such as Manchuria, Northeast China, Taiwan, and the Penghu Islands, etc., be returned to China. This is not only a legal confirmation of the fact that Taiwan belongs to China, and is an important part of the post-World War II international order. In November 1943, the heads of government of China, the United States and the United Kingdom signed the Cairo Declaration in Cairo, the capital of Egypt. Resolution 2758 of the United Nations General Assembly confirmed that the government of the People's Republic of China is the sole legal government representing the whole of China, including Taiwan, in the United Nations, and that Taiwan belongs to China. The One China principle affirmed in this resolution has been recognized by 182 countries that have diplomatic relations with China, and has already become a general consensus of the international community. Today, the United States has left behind the Potsdam Proclamation it drafted back then, blatantly supporting Taiwan independence separatist activities, challenging the post-war international order, and undermining China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Order, this is typical self-deception, bluffing, and deceit. The Taiwan issue has never been an international issue. Whoever hypes up the internationalization of the Taiwan issue is violating the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations, especially the basic norms of international law such as sovereign equality of states and non-interference in internal affairs, an important political and legal document of the international order. It is a violation of the political and legal commitments made with the establishment of diplomatic relations with China. It is a violation of UN General Assembly Resolution 2758 and the general consensus of the international community on the One China principle. On August 7, 2022, Roger Waters, co-founder of the Western British rock band Pink Floyd, replied in an interview with CNN that Taiwan is part of China, and those who don't know should read it read. But this move against the trend and challenge the post-World War II international order is destined to not go far. May I ask how many countries are really willing to ride on the American chariot of using Taiwan to control China? With the lessons learned from the Ukraine crisis ahead, will other countries take chestnuts for the Americans because of the Taiwan issue? During his visit to China in April this year, French President Emmanuel Macron made it clear that Europe should avoid getting involved in Sino-US conflicts over the Taiwan issue. German Chancellor Scholz said that containing China's development is not in the interest of any party. The National Security Council of the Philippines clarified that the Philippines will not become a pawn of other countries and does not want to meddle in the Taiwan issue. A recent research report by the RAND Corporation shows that if China and the United States start a war in the Taiwan Strait, none of the 12 U.S. allies in the Indo-Pacific region will support U.S. military operations. On the eve of this year's World Health Assembly, nearly 140 countries voiced their opposition to Taiwan's participation in the conference. Thwarted. Those who want to promote the internationalization of the Taiwan issue and realize the dream of using Taiwan to control China and seeking independence with foreigners will not last long. On May 25, 2023, the spokesperson of the U.S. State Department stated that he was disappointed by the World Health Organization's decision to exclude Taiwan from participating in the World Health Assembly as an observer. The will of the times cannot be stopped, and the historical process of the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation is irreversible. The Taiwan issue arose out of national weakness and chaos, and will surely be resolved with national rejuvenation. It's not easy for an ant to exaggerate a country, but it's not easy for an ant to shake a tree. Any attempt to internationalize the Taiwan issue by forming cliques and obstruct China's complete reunification is no different than a man disarmed and a car, unable to stop the rolling forward. Historical trend.